Imagine waking up and realizing the rain has not stopped. Not for one night, not for two, but for days. The ground beneath you has turned to mud. The fire is shrinking. Smoke fills the shelter. Dry wood is disappearing. The river is rising. The animals you normally hunt have moved away. Children are cold. Food is damp. Every path outside the camp has become slippery, flooded, or dangerous. Today, a week of rain can feel inconvenient. For ancient humans, it could become a survival crisis. So, how did people survive when storms lasted for days or even weeks? The first thing to understand is that ancient humans did not experience rain from behind glass. There were no waterproof roofs, no heated rooms, no weather forecasts, no plastic containers, no dry clothes waiting in a cupboard, and no rescue service coming if the river rose overnight. Rain entered everything. It soaked the ground where people slept. It weakened shelters. It ruined firewood. It changed animal behavior. It washed away tracks. It contaminated water. It made injuries harder to treat. And once the body became cold and wet, every other problem became more dangerous. Rain itself was not always the enemy. Water filled rivers, revived plants, attracted animals, and made future food possible. But too much rain, for too long, transformed a useful resource into a threat. The most immediate problem was shelter. A simple windbreak that worked in dry weather could fail completely during a long storm. Water could run beneath it, drip through it, or collect around it. A badly chosen campsite could become a shallow pond in a single night. Ancient groups, therefore, needed to understand landscapes in a way most modern people rarely do. They had to notice where water moved, which slopes drained quickly, which caves stayed dry, which trees offered cover, which riverbanks flooded first, which valleys trapped cold air, which ridges were exposed to wind. A good shelter was not simply a roof. It was a location. A cave might seem perfect, but caves created their own problems. Some flooded, some trapped smoke, some were already occupied by predators. Others had falling rocks, narrow exits, or water dripping from the ceiling. The safest part of a cave was not always the deepest part. People needed light, ventilation, and an escape route. They also needed to avoid sleeping directly on wet stone. Cold ground pulls heat from the body, so ancient humans likely used layers of grass, leaves, bark, skins, or branches to create bedding above the damp surface. This did more than make sleep comfortable. It created insulation. Even a thin barrier between the body and the ground could preserve precious warmth. Outside caves, shelters had to be repaired constantly. Branches could form a frame. Leaves, reeds, grass, bark, hides, or woven materials could help shed water. The roof needed a slope, so rain ran off instead of collecting above the people beneath it. The shelter also needed drainage. A small channel around the sleeping area could guide water away. A raised platform of branches or packed material could keep bodies above mud. Openings had to face away from the strongest wind. These were not random tricks. They were survival knowledge passed through observation. A child who watched adults repair a roof during one storm might remember the method years later. But even the best shelter could not solve the next great problem: fire. For ancient humans, fire was more than light. It warmed wet bodies, dried clothing and hides, cooked food, drove away some predators, hardened tools, created smoke that could repel insects. And, perhaps most importantly, during endless rain, it gave people a place around which the group could organize itself. But keeping fire alive in a storm is difficult. The easiest fire to light is the fire that never went out. Instead of starting from nothing, people could protect glowing embers beneath ash, carry hot coals in suitable containers, or preserve a small core of fire while adding fuel carefully. The group may have treated fire almost like a living member of the camp. It had to be fed, sheltered, watched. moved when necessary. A single careless moment could destroy days of security. Dry fuel became precious. People could collect dead branches from beneath dense trees, split damp wood to reach a drier interior, peel bark, search inside hollow trunks, or save resin-rich wood that burned more easily. Small pieces mattered first. Fine fibers, dry grass, shredded bark, fungus, or other tinder could help create the first flame. Thicker fuel came later. And the fire itself had to be placed wisely. Too close to the shelter, and sparks could spread. Too far outside, and the rain could kill it. Too deep inside a cave, and smoke could become unbearable. A fire near an entrance, protected from direct rain but allowed to breathe, might create the best balance. Still, even a successful fire produced another problem: smoke. Wet wood burns badly. It smolders, fills shelters with irritating fumes, and makes breathing difficult. In a crowded space, people could be forced to choose between cold air and heavy smoke. They may have opened gaps in the shelter, shifted the fire, used drier fuel, or moved sleeping positions as the wind changed. Survival often meant accepting discomfort rather than eliminating it. The goal was not to feel comfortable. The goal was to remain warm enough, dry enough, and alert enough to continue. Food was the next challenge. Long rain could interrupt hunting. Tracks disappeared. Visibility dropped. Rivers became dangerous. Animals changed routes or hid in protected areas. Gathering could also become harder. Some plants were unavailable. Roots were difficult to dig from flooded soil. Fruits fell and spoiled. Insects and mold spread through stored food. Ancient humans could not rely on one food source. Groups that survived unpredictable weather likely did so partly because they used many different foods. Meat when hunting succeeded. Fish when rivers were safe. Shellfish near coasts or lakes. Nuts, seeds, roots, tubers, fruit, insects, eggs, and edible plants when available. A storm might remove one option while creating another. Rain could push animals toward certain routes. Floodwater could trap fish in shallow pools. Soft ground could make digging easier in some places. Snails, frogs, insects, and small animals might become easier to collect. The best survivors were not necessarily the strongest hunters. They were the people who could change strategy. Stored food would have been especially valuable. Dried meat, smoked food, nuts, seeds, or hard plant materials could keep a group alive when daily foraging failed. But storage during wet weather was difficult. Food had to be kept off the ground, away from dripping water, protected from insects, and close enough to the fire to remain dry without burning. Smoke itself may have helped preserve some food. Drying racks placed above or beside a controlled fire could slowly remove moisture while the group waited for the storm to pass. Yet hunger was not the only danger. Water was everywhere, but safe drinking water was not guaranteed. Heavy rain can wash waste, animal remains, soil, and other contaminants into streams and pools. Clear water can still carry danger. Ancient humans did not understand microbes as we do, but they could learn patterns. Water from a fast-moving source might be safer than stagnant water. Water collected directly from rainfall could be useful if gathered cleanly. Water near camp waste or dead animals could make people sick. Boiling, when suitable containers were available, could reduce some risks. Heating stones and placing them into water-filled containers may also have allowed people to warm or boil water without metal pots. But in many situations, survival depended on choosing the least dangerous source available. The longer the rain continued, the more the camp changed. Mud became a constant enemy. It entered bedding, food areas, wounds, and tools. Feet softened and cracked. Cuts became dirty. People slipped while carrying firewood or children. Simple movement required more energy. A journey that normally took 1 hour could take several. This mattered because wet clothing and wind can cool the body quickly. Ancient humans did not need modern scientific words to recognize that shivering was a warning. The body was losing heat. Children, injured people, older adults, and anyone weakened by hunger faced greater danger. The group had to respond, move closer together, share skins, reduce unnecessary travel, dry bodies near the fire, protect the head and torso, keep sleeping areas above the ground, eat when food was available. Human beings are unusually good at using social cooperation as a form of insulation. One body is vulnerable. A group can share heat, labor, knowledge, and attention. During a long storm, someone had to maintain the fire. Someone had to gather fuel. Someone had to watch the children. Someone had to check the river. Someone had to repair the roof. Someone had to prepare food. Someone had to care for the sick. No single person could do everything safely. Rain made cooperation visible. A person who refused to help could endanger everyone. A person who remembered where dry wood could be found might become essential. A skilled shelter builder could save lives. An older member of the group who recognized the signs of flooding might be more valuable than the strongest hunter. Knowledge became power, but endless rain also placed pressure on the mind. Imagine being trapped for days in a crowded shelter. Children crying, smoke stinging the eyes, clothes never fully drying, people hungry, tired, and unable to escape one another. Minor irritation could become conflict. A badly placed tool. Someone taking too much food. A person sleeping near the driest wall. Someone failing to collect enough wood. In a small shelter, every disagreement had an audience. The storm outside could become a storm inside the group. This is where social skills mattered. Humor, storytelling, touch, shared meals, songs, games, rituals, simple routines. These activities were not useless distractions. They helped people manage fear, boredom, anger, and uncertainty. A story told beside the fire could keep children calm. A repeated song could organize work. A joke could release tension before it became violence. A ritual could give the group a sense that the storm had meaning, a beginning, and perhaps an end. Ancient humans survived not only because they made tools, they survived because they could regulate one another's emotions. The storm also changed how people understood time. Without a clock, a forecast, or a calendar, no one knew exactly when the rain would stop. Every morning might begin with the same gray sky, every night with the same sound on the roof. Hope could become difficult, but people could watch signs, the direction of the wind, the shape of clouds, the behavior of birds, the level of streams, the pressure felt in the air, the return of insects. A change in temperature. Some signs were reliable, others were not. Experience allowed people to make better predictions, but weather always kept part of its mystery. And sometimes the correct decision was not to wait. It was to move. Moving during heavy rain was dangerous, but staying could become worse. If water entered the shelter, the river rose too quickly, food ran out, or the hillside became unstable, the group had to leave. That meant carrying children, tools, fire, food, hides, and whatever could not be replaced. The route had to avoid swollen rivers, slippery cliffs, and low ground. People may have used familiar landmarks, ridgelines, animal paths, and memory to reach higher or drier areas. Migration was not always a great journey across continents. Sometimes it was a desperate movement of a few kilometers to survive one terrible week. Flooding created another danger. A calm stream could become a violent barrier. Water could rise during the night because of rain falling far upstream. Crossing became risky. Ancient humans may have waited, searched for narrower points, used fallen trees, linked arms, carried children above the water, or avoided crossing entirely. The strongest person could still be swept away. The group had to judge not only courage, but timing. There is a difference between bravery and unnecessary risk. Storms punished groups that confused the two. Predators were also affected by rain. Some animals hid. Others moved closer to human shelters, drawn by food warmth, or the same dry spaces people wanted to use. Tracks became difficult to detect. Wind and rain masked sound. A predator could approach more closely before being noticed. Humans may have kept fires burning, positioned watchers near entrances, stored food carefully, and avoided leaving children alone. The storm blurred the boundary between human shelter and animal shelter. Everyone was searching for the same thing: dry ground, warmth, safety. After many days, disease could become a serious threat. Crowded shelters, smoke, damp bedding, contaminated water, spoiled food, wounds, and close contact all increased risk. People may have noticed which plants soothed coughs, reduced pain, helped wounds, or settled the stomach. Not every remedy worked. Some were probably useless. Some may have been harmful, but over generations, groups could preserve practical knowledge through memory and teaching. A plant used during one storm might become part of the group's medical tradition. A mistake that killed someone might become a warning repeated to children. Survival knowledge was built from countless experiments, most of which were never written down. Then, eventually, the rain stopped. But the crisis did not end immediately. The landscape had changed. Rivers had new channels, trees had fallen, animal trails had moved, food stores were low, the shelter needed rebuilding. People were weak, the ground remained wet. New insects appeared. The first clear morning was not simply a return to normal, it was the beginning of recovery. The group had to dry everything, repair tools, search for food, check traps, inspect the surrounding land, bury waste, treat wounds, decide whether the camp was still safe. A successful recovery depended on what had survived the storm. Not only food and fire, but trust. A group that had cooperated could emerge stronger. A group divided by fear, selfishness, or violence might not recover at all. This may be the deepest lesson of endless rain. Ancient humans did not defeat weather. They adapted to it. They read landscapes, built shelters, protected fire, stored food, changed diets, moved when necessary, shared labor, managed fear, and learned from every disaster. The same storm that could kill an isolated person could be survived by a coordinated group. Rain exposed every weakness, but it also revealed every strength. So the next time you hear rain striking a roof while you sit inside a dry room, remember how extraordinary that protection is. For most of human history, there was no solid wall between the body and the storm. There was only knowledge, fire, shelter, memory, and other people, and sometimes, when the sky refused to clear, those things were enough.